We're here at the Small Business Power Breakfast and Conference. I'm excited to say that we had a great day.
This event was a wow. Every panel, every speaker has had so much amazing content and good information to share.
This is a good day to put aside to come out and do some learning, but also make some great connections. The ones that I made were impactful.
Yeah, so the importance of connecting with other people to grow my business is I really never know what leads to what. I might sit next to somebody at a conference I would have never met anywhere else, and their cousin might be the biggest client I ever had.
We kicked off the day with the Power Breakfast. Our speaker was Bohensky, and his topic was maximizing the value of your business.
Most business owners don't know what the value of their business is and don't really know the factors that drive the value of their business. So 80% of businesses that are listed don't sell. And of the ones that do, 3/4 of the business owners afterwards say they were unsatisfied or they had serious regrets about the process.
And the morning speaker was excellent as well, got us learning what we needed to do in order to be able to ensure that our business could run without us, which I never even considered. And that's something that I'm going to be looking at now to make sure that my revenues are moving forward and my business is moving forward without me, which means I can make more money and work less. Otherwise, I'm just going to be in a job like I was before.
Next, we had a panel on organizing your small business administratively. That's a challenge for a lot of businesses because usually that's one of the last things you do, but that could be something that bites you in the butt.
We just completed a panel session with regards to organizing your small business to make sure it's properly structured, make certain that your rights are protected with regards to patent, your intellectual properties.
IP is intellectual property. It's a property right in something intangible, like an idea or a brand or an artistic work. But all of these can be used to protect your business.
My portion of the panel discussion was based around employee benefits for new businesses. Can be really daunting.
There are certain benefits that you can offer as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, and even maybe a large business owner.
We talked about organizing your business. What kind of things do you have to do to get set up right and get your financial systems in place?
For lunch, we had our keynote speaker, Casey Carpenter, who talked about being able to sell even as an introvert.
I'm Casey Carpenter, the sales breakthrough coach, and I gave a presentation today about 5 ways to dispel fear in selling and boost the revenue in your business. I have written a book called Introverts in Sales: Turn Your Peaceful Power into a Powerful Selling Machine. I myself am a painfully shy introvert who overcame a lot. My number 1 tip is to quit pitching and start connecting, because it's really through relationship building and connection and genuine like for each other that sales even happen in the first place.
I mean, why is it that we can't think of sales as something that is wonderful, where 2 people sit across the desk from each other and we agree, and there's solutions and promises, and it's really nice? Why can't it be that way? I believe it can.
And then we're wrapping up right now with our panel on government and corporate contracting, really demystifying the contracting process and helping small businesses figure out how can they do contracting.
A lot of people don't know about the certifications that are involved in when you have your own business, and these professionals who've been doing it many years went into significant detail.
The secret to contracts is to know how to read. You got to read the contract to find out what's in it, number 1. Number 2, you need to read the contract to see if you can do it. And number 3, you need to read the contract again so that you cross all of your T's and dot all of your I's.
It's important and incumbent upon small businesses that when you seek to do business with other entities, that you prepare yourself, that you know who you're seeking to do business with, that you understand the culture of the organization. Well, I think this is a wonderful event. I think all events like these are wonderful because any time that you're informing the business community and providing training and knowledge and information on how they can become better, is important.
And you never know who that one dot connector could be that could take your business to the next level.
The Power Breakfast Conference, it's really a fantastic way of bringing business owners and professionals to share each other's brain trust of their experience.
Excellent day. Looking forward to continuing to network, connect with the great people that I've met, and also looking to review the knowledge that I've gained.
I thought it was very helpful and very, very educational. Everybody should be here, and we should be networking with each other.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Power Breakfast. Very excited. We already had a great morning session, a lot of energy in the room, a lot of connections, building relationships, strengthening relationships, and that's what it's all about. It's important to learn, but it's also important to connect, and you get an opportunity to do both of those things here. Very excited about this next session. When we started the Power Breakfast 10 years ago, it was only a breakfast. So over the years, we've evolved. A couple years later, we added an expert panel to the breakfast. So this segment is the first expert panel. Over the years, we've grown, we've done a lot of great things, starting in the city of Newark 10 years ago, we had an opportunity to really grow with the city and help entrepreneurs grow in a lot of the good things that are going on here in Newark. And we're back here today to celebrate that. Special thank you to recognition from our mayor, Roz Baraka, wrote a letter about the Power Breakfast. We also had recognition from the county commissioners and actually even Governor Murphy and Senator Cory Booker. So, definitely, it's had an impact, and, we've had a great team and really doing some great things. So this afternoon, this is one of the panels that I think is going to be very valuable. If you were online, you probably saw a little bit in the video about maximizing your value. And we're going to build on that. Gene Bohensky, who was in the video, actually is going to moderate today. And, he has tremendous experience. He runs the Alternative Board of Northern New Jersey, where he gathers business owners together to help them strategize and support each other's growth. He's had his own business and sold it, and, had an interesting experience with that, but I'll let him tell you more about that. And he works with business all the time. We've collaborated on some projects, and he's really sharp. And then we've got two other expert panelists who really have some tremendous experience. So between the three of them, you're in for a real treat, and definitely looking forward to getting started. So let me hand it over to Gene, and he'll take it from here.
Thank you, Andrew. So yes, this panel is going to be concentrating on maximizing the value of your business. There's a lot of things to think about when you have a business. Before I get started, though, I want to introduce my panelists here. Damien Jackson is the CEO of Kind Capital Resources. I'll let him spend a couple of words to talk about himself. And then on to Mark Lewis, who is with New York Life Benefit Solutions as a financial service professional. So I'll let you guys talk a little bit about yourself, introduce yourselves, and then I'll get the panel started.
Met everyone this morning. Hello again. Damien Jackson, CEO, Managing Partner at Kind Capital Resources. We are a registered investment advisory. We act as investment bankers, and we provide access to capital for entrepreneurs looking to get to the next level. We'll do that on the equity and the debt side. On the equity side, we'll do raises anywhere between $500,000 and $20 million. I would say our sweet spot, somewhere between 6 and 12. Normally, our clients are doing somewhere around $1 million worth of EBITDA. However, on the debt side, we finance almost anything from something small as simple working capital loans all the way up to restructuring projects and everything else in between. On the wealth management side, we cover all of that as well. So we're truly a one-stop shop financially for an entrepreneur. Thank you.
Good morning. There we go. I am E. Mark Lewis. Many of you have heard of New York Life. Well, New York Life also is the provider of New York Life Benefit Solutions. We are a group benefits provider that allows firms to attract, retain, and reward employees. We are here to offer companies sophisticated planning and enable them to achieve their goals in the business world. Thank you.
So as Andrew mentioned, at one time I did have a business. I had a luxury chocolate business that I started. I developed the concept and I sold the business, and I did everything possible wrong in that whole process of selling that business. And 7 years ago, I became a business coach. And one of the missions I had for myself in being a business coach is to kind of help business owners understand the process of developing their business as an asset, as a valuable asset that can be sold to somebody else. Right. So just before I get started on talking more, how many people here have a business right now? Raise your hands. How many people here have thought about selling it in the future? And how many people are hoping that their business is going to pay or facilitate their retirement? Quite a few of you. Here's the bad news. Most businesses don't sell. You have a very small chance of selling your business. That's the reality. And one of the things I wanted to really point out, and what this panel is about, is you got to think about your business as kind of like your house, right? If you buy a house, it's a lot of money, right? You need to keep that house in good condition. You need to invest in that house. You need to fix things. You need to increase the value of that house by paying attention to it in a certain way. The same thing has to do with your business. You have to focus on your business as an asset and understand what it takes to make your business into an asset you can sell. But here's the good news. Every single one of you that has a business has the opportunity to do this. It doesn't really matter where you're starting right now or what your concept is. Every single one of you can develop a business that is valuable and that can be sold to somebody else for a substantial amount of money. That's the message I want to give to you. Every one of you that has a business can do that, right? As Andrew has mentioned, there are three primary levers that drive the value of the business. That's the profit the business generates. That's the growth the business has that it's seeing, especially in the last years before you're trying to sell it. And then there's the risk to the future business owner, to the future owner. Because remember, if you're developing a business and growing a business to sell it, you have to sell it to somebody else. You're actually developing something that somebody else is going to have to want to buy. They're going to have to want to buy your business. And you're going to have to package it up like a nice package in a way that somebody's going to actually want to buy it. One of the things I like about Andrew is his book, The Masterpreneur Playbook. I hope all of you guys get a copy of this because it is an excellent book. And in it, he lists the 5 stages of business ownership to become a masterpreneur. All of you are going to have to understand these stages because if you want to develop a business that's going to sell, you have to follow those steps. The steps are applicable to everybody and everybody's business, okay? And I'll just reiterate them real quickly. The first step is working on the concept of your business. It's understanding who you're going to sell to and what you're going to sell them and how you're going to do it. The next step is working in your business. As he stated earlier, you got to be a good salesperson. You've got to figure out how to get your own clients. That's the second step, right? Then you're going to work on your business. That's the third step. That's when you're going to start thinking about hiring people and training them to do the things that you do, right? Because eventually you're going to want to sell the business, and the business is going to be or need to operate without you. So you're going to have to hire people and train them to do the things that you are doing now. This is a very hard thing to do, a very difficult thing for people to do, especially business owners. It's very hard. And of course, the fourth is working on the future of your business. That's where you already have people in place to do things, and it allows you to have the time to look at your business conceptually and strategically on how to bring that business to the next level. And then the fifth part is scaling your business. By that time, you have a lot of systems in place. You have a management team in place. You have employees in place. They're trained to know what they're doing. The business knows what it's doing. It knows who its customers are. It knows who its markets are. You figured all those things out, and now you can learn how to scale it to those next high levels. That's where you really build value for somebody else. Very important to understand that. Now, all of these steps, like I mentioned before, they can apply to every business. It doesn't matter what type of business you've started. The idea is to get yourself motivated to learn about these processes and to start thinking about them and putting them into place. But everybody can do that. That's one thing I have to reiterate again. So let's talk about a couple of things related to risk. That's probably the biggest one. Growth and profit, those levers are very important, but I would say the risk side is where we need to spend most of the time thinking about, because the risk side, understanding the risks is going to motivate all you guys to do something, right? Because I'm going to make you afraid, right? If you're afraid, you're going to worry about things, and then that's when you're going to be actually motivated to do something about it, okay? So the first part of the risk that we want to talk about, and Damien's going to help me out, is the finances, the financial risk. Not only the financial risks in the business, but most importantly, the financial risk to the next owner. So Damien, you have experience in this area, probably more than anyone that I know. And I just think it's, as the panel moderator, I'm going to give this section over to you to talk about risks, financial risks, and what people have to know about their business from that standpoint.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gene, for that segue. So business is all about risk, right? When you started your business, you took a risk. When someone's going to come in and purchase your business, that's a major risk for them. They're putting it all on the line, right? They're putting up capital into a company that they really are just taking over the controls for. So the tighter you've gotten your ship, the more attractive you're going to be. But when you get to the point of scale that Gene was referring to, that's really where you start looking at the company, I guess, with a high degree of scrutiny. I want to see not only your company, I want to see comparable companies. That's going to give me an idea of what the marketplace is really commanding for a company like yourself. My assumption is that you've already gotten it to the point where it's best of breed, right? The next thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at the M&A activity in your industry. So let's say it's 1998 and you own a Blockbusters, right? It's highly unlikely that you're going to get a big check from an investor, right? However, if you're in New Jersey today and you wanted to start a semiconductor business, the government just gave out $50 billion in grants for you to do that, right? You might get a check from an investor if you're an engineer that understands how to do it and has some traction, right? Looking at the income side, and that's where Gene and Andrew are so excellent, because from our viewpoint as an investment banker, we're looking at the income as that's going to be your revenue, your profit margin, your EBITDA. I want to see your working capital. I want to see your capital expenditures. I want to be able to see your capital structure. How are you managing it? Not only are you able to produce it, that should be a foregone conclusion. You should already know that sales and marketing is your number one deal, because that's the only thing that brings dollars in. If you're not selling, you're broke. There is no business, right? So once you understand that, grabbing the controls and making sure that you understand the numbers are so key, because now, once you understand how the rest of the market is acting towards your industry, right, the overall market, and you know your numbers, you know whether you're best of breed. And that's going to let you know whether or not you're going to get bought out at a premium, or you're just going to work in that business because you're not going to have any takers. You're going to work in that business well into retirement and pass out at your desk, right? That's the risk to the acquiring company. But there's other risks associated with your business as well that I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, right? So there's overhead expenses that, God forbid, something happens to your business. There's a flood, there's a fire, there's anything else. You want to make sure that you have all of those insurances in place. It's one thing to have your financials together. It's a horrible thing to go on the next day and see that somebody's ransacked your business and you're out of inventory, right? Or you have to find another way. Right? The risk of not being on top of those things is what's going to have your business go out of business much quicker than it would have. Right? I hope that answered some of the question, Mark.
Yes. Risk is managed. When you're in business, you know that each day there are pitfalls. And oftentimes, when you are in business, a part of being in business is risk management. And oftentimes, that comes about through insurance. Most people think of insurance as an expense. And for a business, it is an expense that they can write off. So oftentimes when I'm sitting down with a business owner, I'm oftentimes talking about, have you considered key man insurance? Key man for that themselves and key man for their operations manager. Have you considered some kind of deferred compensation? So you've attracted one or two people, but you want to attract others. How do you keep those people here and reward them? Because if you lose them, that's a risk to the business. So ultimately, risk management is a daily concern. You're growing your business and you're growing faster than you thought you would grow. So in order for a business to really be profitable, they need manpower. And that manpower, you've heard about the Great Resignation in the last 2 years, correct? Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work. Everybody wants to stay home. Well, a lot of people are considering work, but they want to work remote. Sometimes that doesn't work for a business. Sometimes we need somebody on deck, in place for your business to run. So there needs to be sometimes incentives such as benefits that will keep the person there. So many small businesses, while they may have health insurance, there is minimal, I would say 50% of them are offering some kind of retirement compensation. Well, even if I'm offering some kind of retirement compensation, what if I could get some kind of non-qualified compensation for the key person to keep that person there? It's a golden handcuff. It's a way to keep that person on board, working, and possibly participating in the profits of the company. That may not seem like a risk to you, but it's definitely a risk. Because if somebody is in and out of your doors, you're stopping to do that work. So when a number of people raise their hands that they're business owners, are you a sole practitioner or are you someone with staff? You can chime in. Are we sole practitioners? Yes. Mostly sole practitioners.
How many people have staff?
Kind of. Okay. That's okay. That's absolutely perfect. In the real world, when you're starting a business, you're wearing multiple hats. Too many hats. Sorry. So how do you take off some of those hats and delegate it to someone else? Well, you're going to have to give some incentives. And sometimes those incentives can be deducted. So I give you $20,000 compensation in addition to your salary, but you don't get it in income. You get it in a deferred compensation. And you handcuff that so that you get 20%, you get 20% each year, and in the 5th year, all of that money is yours. Hopefully by that time, that person is fully entrenched in your business, fully on board. So you de-risk that process. I have a checklist up front. The first person to take it up gets $100. No, I'm only joking. But the first person to fill it out will get a newsletter. Because as a business owner, that checklist will tell you some of the things you should be looking at to de-risk this whole process. Now, of course, you know that you're not going to remove the risk. When somebody tells me they're in business, I say, you're trading a stock. Because that business is more risky than buying a stock. However, the difference is you're betting on yourself. And if I'm going to bet on someone, I'm going to bet on me. Thank you.
One of the things about employees, and this is an important point, when you're building your team, a lot of times when business owners start to hire people, they're really only hiring people to help them personally, right? Especially if you don't have the luxury to hire people that can manage and push you yourself as the business owner. But it's important as you grow, you start hiring people that take more of an active role in your business, people you can trust, people who you can trust to really offload what you're doing. This is very hard for people in general because they have to structure their activities and define them in the way that they can hand them over to somebody else. Then they have to find the right people who can do those activities and then hold them accountable. And this is a very challenging thing. A lot of people don't want to do that, right? It's too much trouble, especially if you get burned with the wrong employee and he will do something like bad to your business, which is possible, right? There's a risk. One of the things that Mark was explaining about was how important it is that those employees are almost treated as partners. That you're bringing them in and you're able to trust them to grow the business. Because when you want to sell that business, you want to sell that business with them in place, right? Because remember, you have to be out of the business when you sell it. And the biggest risk to the next buyer is that if the owner goes, the customer relationships go, the owner's the only one that knows what they're doing, the owner is the only one with the relationships with the employees. When the owner goes, the business goes. Then what do you have? What do you have of value? That's one of the reasons why a lot of businesses don't sell, is because the next owner doesn't have any confidence that that business is going to be around when the business owner leaves, right? That's one of the challenges. Maybe Damien, you can talk about some of your experiences with business owners and attest to that.
Sure. So there's a couple of areas that most business owners don't take a look at in regards to how to hand over the keys. And there's some elements of risk that every business owner should always take a look at when it comes to their business. Number one is the political risk, right? Are you going to be legislated out of your business? And you'd be surprised, it happens every single day. Economics. Okay, are you going to be priced out of your business? Is it going to get so expensive to run your business? Is it going to be unattainable? Can you continue to do it? Social, right? Socially speaking, okay, is your business running against where society is headed, right? You got to sometimes see a little bit around the corner, right? And that's going to tell you whether or not your business is actually going to be there in 10 years. If you're seeing society move away from that, more than likely your business is going to die out with that movement. Okay. Technology. Is technology getting to the point where if you don't upgrade, are you going to be sellable? Right? You'd be surprised how many times these deals fall apart because it's not able to be integrated because their systems are so old. Right? You have a good model, you have good customers, but I can't buy you because I can't incorporate you into the underlying portfolio. Right? Environmental. Is the business that you're running, is it green? I mean, let's face it, that's where we are now, right? If you're not there and looking to go there, if you have a small coal mining business in West Virginia, 10 years from now, it probably is not going to be as efficient. So you selling it is going to not be likely. There's no coal mines here, but you kind of get the idea what I mean. And then the legality of it. Has your industry become more litigious over time? And you'll see that be the case with the trucking industry, right? You'll see that be the case with the delivery industry. It's gotten to the point now where you have to work with Amazon if you're going to be a delivery person because they've just priced you out of the market, right? So taking those things into account and making sure that you're looking at all of those angles inside of your business is going to really let you know whether or not somebody's going to want to buy it, because that's going to let them know whether you're going to be there 5 or 10 years from now.
And Mark, I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the experiences you've had with companies and employees, especially small companies, how those benefits how companies have used benefits and used the idea that they need to commit to their employees, help them with their own business growth.
Sure. In 30 years I've been doing this, there's always a resistance initially until something happens to someone. Hopefully not the business owner. But the process of helping a business owner to understand that this is in their best interest is straightforward. Oftentimes it comes about because there is a tax deduction. So if I can create a plan that allows the business owner to protect himself and other members of his team and still get the benefits of a write-off, it's digestible. But for the most part, when you're going with a full-blown plan, a business owner is losing people because he didn't have a retirement plan, or God forbid, he didn't have health insurance. And someone gets injured, then there's a general need to act and get something in place. For the most part, most business owners recognize that this is a way to really attract people, because you're not going to be able to keep a talented individual in your business, growing in your business, having no participation in the equity of the company to stay. So ultimately, the intent here is to give the business owner understanding that giving your staff, your partners in this business, some equity, that usually leads to some implementation. The real understanding here is that in the course of business owners see a variety of events. I mean, in the course of a day, there's always something going wrong. I like to call it just to MacGyver everything. Because that we know things can go wrong, they will go wrong. And the risk of them going wrong is absolutely certain. So I've seen it time and time again, something being put in place, then down the road, additional products being offered, and ultimately a full slate of products being offered by the company. So when you're a small business owners, I know a number of people raised their hand and they said that they are sole practitioners. One of the first things you probably want to do is look at key man insurance on yourself. That alone will enhance your credit worthiness with a bank. Key man insurance, you own insurance on yourself. In the event something happens, there is revenue to pay off any loans. And sometimes having it before you go into a bank because you need a loan is pragmatic. It's looked at as being thoughtful, that you're thinking this process through. So I can encourage you that if you haven't seen someone who's had a problem in the workplace with staff or staff leaving, it's probably because there's nothing there except the work or except the salary. Did I answer your question adequately?
Yes. I want to pivot now and focus on both the profit and the growth segments. And I'll kind of tailor it for the audience, for the solopreneurs in the room. When you're starting a business and you're working for yourself, things are tight, right? You don't really have the money to do everything you want. And when you listen to people talk about their businesses when they're larger, you really can't even envision it, right? You can't envision what that's going to be like. Well, let me explain a little bit how that process works. So when you're working on the concept of your business and you're starting to sell and you're starting to see profits, you start to get a little bit more comfortable with doing things. But at some point, if you're doing things right and you have a coach and you have people that are mentoring you, you're going to get to the point where you're making enough money where you're no longer worried about all the things you were worried about before. And the reality is you can plan for it theoretically, but once you start getting more comfortable with the funds coming in and the profits that are generated, that's when you probably are going to be comfortable enough to start planning. Right? Because once you have enough money, you've paid your rent, or your mortgage, you're paying your car off, you're paying all your business expenses off, you have extra money lying around for doing things. I mean, this is how it grows. Your next thing is going to be your first hire, right? That's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. That's never going to be comfortable to do. All right? That first hire is going to be tough. And then you're going to have to figure out, who am I hiring? Is it an assistant? Is it an operations person? Is it another salesperson? What is that next person going to do, right? That's a tough question that you guys are going to have to answer. I'll put a pitch in for business coaching. If you don't have a business coach that understands you and your business, you need one. There isn't any successful business owner that hasn't had a coach, at least at some point in their business growth. Because you can't do this alone. And there's a lot of people who know more about where you are than you do. That's my experience from coaching for the last 7 years. So find someone you want to work with and can work with to supercharge your business, right? Supercharge that growth and get you to the next level. As you're building that asset, as you're building that house, right? You're building that house for yourself. All that hard work is going to pay off one day when you go to sell that business. That's what you have to do. And you have to figure that out, right, for yourselves. It's not easy to do. It's not an easy process. But as I mentioned at the beginning, those two levers, profit and growth, becoming profitable and having sustainable business growth, are two big factors in business valuation, right? If your business has been growing for a number of years, it's much more valuable than if it's been stable those last years, right? Because when a business owner buys your business, he or she has to take a loan out to buy that business. So not only does that next business owner have to pay off the loan, right? He's got to pay himself from the profits of the business. He or she has a lot more challenges than you as a business owner do at that point, right? So you have to tee that business up for the next owner. Typically, the next owner is going to have to grow that 40% in order to pay off the loan and make the same profit that you were making when you were selling the business. So if the next owner doesn't think he or she could sell the business, they're probably not going to be interested in your business. And I want to turn it back to Damien to talk a little bit about when he's valuing businesses, how growth and profits factor into that.
Sure. So when we're looking at doing a business valuation, the profit and the growth is very important. It gives us a backdrop to where you are right now, how efficiently you're running the business. But it may not tell the whole story, right? So part of that story needs to be relative to what's your growth relative to the overall market, your industry. If you're only growing at 10%, yeah, you're growing, you're doing good. But if your industry is growing at 40%, you are not attractive, right? So it's always relative to what's going on in the overall market, in your niche market, and then, of course, in the overall macro market, right? Economically speaking, like we're seeing now, we're starting to see investment banks sort of pull back. They're tightening their purse strings right now. Everyone is. Nobody's writing checks anymore. Before, you can get, financing for a macaroni and cheese cup, right? Now you gotta have a full data room, fully stocked, institutional grade ready with CPAs and attorneys surrounding you, ready to fight for you in the boardroom. Things have changed, and it only took 2 months to get there. So understanding the lay of the land and the overall market relative to what it is that you're doing is very key. Profit and growth have to be the focus every single minute of your business day. And then when you go home, as you know, us all being business owners, you get to think about it then too, right? But profit and growth is one of those things where it's a non-negotiable. If there's no profit, there can be no valuation. There's no multiple for me to say that it's worth X amount if there's no profit there, unless you have an incredible IP, an intellectual property that's so disruptive and world-changing that, everyone's going to want to write you a check. But for the most part, that's not most people. You have a hand in the back? So yeah, I hope that answers the question. Mark? Oh, you did have a question.
No. I was just saying I'm the one with the IP.
Oh, so you're the person to talk to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I defer to people like Damien for valuation.
So one of the aspects about profit and growth is that you have to have the ability to actually prove it to somebody. So how do you think it's proven, right? You got to have the right financial statements. They have to be accurate. They have to be ready for a bank to look at it and make an assessment of what they're looking at. Now, since most of you are solopreneurs and starting business owners, I know for a fact what your books look like, so you don't have to admit it. It's tough for small business owners when you're starting out to think in these terms. When businesses get even a little bit larger, in the $500,000 to $2 million range, normally their books are a mess. And normally their accountants and all of their staff is preoccupied with trying to figure out how to show as little profit as possible on the tax return, right? Yes, you might save money on taxes, but you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because when you try to get a loan or you try to get a real business valuation on your business, what's shown on that tax return matters. That's what's being used to judge the value of the business. So one of the challenges that actually happens on a regular basis as people go to sell their business, because I look at this stuff all the time, is that what they're showing on their books, what they're showing isn't really accurate. They're actually making more money than they're showing, right? And there's a process that when you're trying to prepare your business for sale, preparing the financials is a multi-year process. In fact, preparing your business for sale is a long process. It's really 3 to 5 years. If you say, I want to sell my business now, you need 3 to 5 years to prepare that management team, to prepare the growth, to prepare your finances, to prepare your operations for maximum profits so they look the best, so that when you sell it, again, you're selling a package to somebody else that has value and it's run clean, right? So that's not easy to do. So when you're looking at profits and growth, this is really Andrew's expertise, accounting, finance, assessing how the operations are running. He's the expert on this. I know that from experience. You can turn things around with an existing business and make it more valuable, even with the same amount of sales. In fact, I had a client once was a landscaper with 65 people doing $5 million a year. He was losing $100,000 a year. Could you imagine that? In fact, there was one time we looked at his snow removal work. In one season, he had the luxury of mobilizing 250 people and 12 truck teams for snow removal, and had the luxury to add $250,000 of his own money to do it. So yes, we helped his operations and we turned it around. He thought he needed to double sales to double profits. He actually dropped sales and tripled profits when he was profitable. So somebody like Andrew coming in and doing operational consulting, that can really work. So
one more thing on that, if you don't mind.
I'm going to pass this over for Damien, and then we're going to open it up for questions.
So the last thing, one of the things when you're starting out, you want to start with the end in mind, right? What is your exit strategy? And I think that that's good to do even on day one, because it gives you a roadmap. Because what kind of piggybacking on what Gene said, when your acquirer comes in, he's taking a loan, but it's not going to be based on his finances. It's based on yours. The bank is going to say, this business can generate this much money. It can service this much debt. That's what's happening. So if you don't have those numbers right, nobody can cut you a check for your business. Okay.
Questions?
So at this time, I'd like to open it up for questions. Anyone have a question?
I'm always fascinated by that concept of selling yourself into bankruptcy, like that landscaper that you worked with, but can you gentlemen talk a little bit more about that? It's a very big challenge in business, right? But I think most entrepreneurs don't get it sometimes until they go out of business, right?
My experience with business owners.
Repeat the question. Repeat the question for on the mic.
I'll repeat the question on the mic.
Okay, I'm Kimmy Way from the Way LLC. Just remember to do that. So I'm saying that there's this concept of selling yourself into bankruptcy. Just the example of the landscaper is that example. He had a lot of sales, but he was losing money every time he sold, right? So, but this is a very hard challenge to overcome, is to be aware that this can happen and know how to prevent it from happening. So I just like these gentlemen to speak about that a little bit.
One of the challenges of running a business is everyone is burdened by their own personality. One of the things I do personality assessments on everyone that I coach, because you can find there's enough tests out there that you can see where possible issues are. One of the issues is that especially people that are very people focused and love people, they want to make people happy, right? They end up giving everything away. They end up not charging enough, right? And they think they're going to make it up in volume, right? I'm losing money, but I'm going to make it up in volume. This is where a coach can really help, looking at your business and looking at what you're doing for pricing. It's very common that people don't charge enough. They're afraid to offend their customers. They're afraid to charge their value. They're afraid to even know what their own value is. That's what drives people into losses. In case of this landscaper, that's exactly what happened. He would go to every client and give away free services to keep the business, give away free plantings, right? And then because he wasn't a numbers person, he wasn't looking at his costs. So he thought his costs were X, they were really Y. Was it really 10% more than he thought? He didn't know. And this is really what happens. This happens over and over again. The only way you can get out of that is with someone to help you. Any comments?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Yeah.
Everything Gene just said, but the compounding effect of it is that as entrepreneurs, you're so confident and you're starting to see some traction, you're seeing some numbers coming to board, you see the revenue, but you're not making any profit, and your thought process says, well, I'm going to sell more. I just need more capital to do it, and you borrow money and you take a loan. And that normally is a death knell because you haven't done any work to really look at why you're not making money. And your automatic assumption is, okay, I just need to go get some capital. And then you try to go the equity way, and people start looking under the hood and say, oh no, back away from that. So you say, all right, well, let me go get some debt. And now you're compounding your losses by doing that. So be very mindful of the capital that you're taking on. Okay.
No comment.
Any other questions? Yes. Can we have the mic up there, back there?
No, that's not going to go.
Look. Speak loud.
Yep.
Speak loud. We can hear you.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi.
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 Thank you. So yes, my name is Francine Campbell Hakeem.
Hi,
With
Francine.
Renaissance Integrated Research Industries.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I was the person who asked about the intellectual property. I was talking to somebody a little earlier, and I was saying, my company's not like like a bakery. Like, you know how much flour to buy, how many cakes you're going to make, how much you can sell. I need money on the front end to employ people and consultants to produce a IP that I have in my mind to decide whether it's valuable to take to market.
Okay.
What is the difference between a grant and a loan?
Gotcha.
Should I go for a grant? Should I go for a loan?
Okay.
How do I pay back the loan if the product fails?
Okay. It's a good question. That's a great question. So your IP, well, first let's start with the difference between a loan and a grant. That's an easy one. Loan you have to pay back, a grant you do not. Okay. Grants are normally pushed towards some sort of initiative that they see a hole in the economy and they want entrepreneurs to, fill it, so they'll incentivize you with grant money to do so. Okay. So I would start there, especially with something that, you're trying to develop. I repeat, I don't know how strong I can say it. Do not take out a loan to get your IP to prototype stage, because that's all that would happen. You're just going to get it out of your head into a working physical thing, right? And then at that point, it's not a business. All it is you've just made it tangible. And then from there, you're going to build a business around this now product. You don't take a loan until that product starts generating revenue. Don't take loans until whatever you're doing can pay it off and leave you a little cushion right, and pay you back for your risk. Okay.
No comment.
One thing I do want to add about starting a business, especially if it's your own idea, don't be wed to your idea too much. Every business I ever started, within 6 months, it was much different than I expected, right? You don't really know where your business is going to go in some cases. You've got to run with it a little bit. Like, for example, I'll talk about my chocolate business. I started this luxury chocolate business, and I started importing chocolates. I had a partnership with a supplier in Belgium. We'd come and repackage. And it was a tough start. And then one of my friends says, "Do you have vegan chocolates?" I didn't even know what that was at the time. So I sent an email off to the owner in Belgium. He's like, "Yes, we can do vegan chocolates. Here are all the chocolates that are not made with milk." All right. 1 week later, I had a website up on vegan chocolates, right? Now, for 5 years, we trended #1 on Google for vegan chocolates. For 5 years. In fact, you can still look where the company still exists, Rose City Chocolates. Rose City Vegan Chocolates is still a thing. It was because one of my friends asked me the question of whether we offered them. I had no intent of getting into the vegan food business, right? But that's kind of what happens to a starting business, right? You're going to end up learning from your customers, and you're going to listen, and they're going to take you in ways that you don't really know. Most people who start a business at the conceptual stage, when they're working on the concept and they're starting to get customers, they got to listen to their potential customers to find out what it is they really want. And that interchange between customers and between your ideas at that initial stage, that's really where the magic starts happening. That's where you can start developing the real concepts and products that are repeatable and profitable, right? By understanding the value of those to your companies. So you probably have fantastic IP to start, but it's not really going to be valuable until you get a lot of customer feedback and you're working on you're building those products, you're building that offering, you're pricing that offering, you know the offering is profitable, you know there's a demand for it, right? That's when the magic starts happening. All of you, a lot of times, a lot of people are wedded to a basic concept and they're stuck on it, right? That's how they end up failing. They fail because they're not able to pivot and make the adjustments necessary at the beginning to change what they're doing, even if it's just a little bit, right? Because you'll end up doing something 5 years later. You'll end up doing something. I have the same situation with business coaching. I started business coaching. I learned about telemarketing because my franchisor said I should do telemarketing. Then I started hiring people in the Philippines to do telemarketing. Look, 5 years later, I'm providing Filipino services to all my business clients. I got 13 people in the Philippines now, just from responding to what my business coaching clients wanted. I developed a
Hi, I'm Farah Laurent, and I'm the founder of International Nurse Coach. So like you, I'm a coach for nurses. So how would you scale a business like that where you're the main person that's like, say, providing coaching services? It's mostly career coaching services. So I'm looking into things like building courses online and things like that. But how do you scale something like that if you're the main person? You know what I mean? I don't know. That's kind of a tough question, but...
You're going to have to figure out a system that 10, 50, or 100 other people can do. And that's using your experience as your coach. If you've developed processes and systems that other people can learn, that's how that works. That's how any business works. A lot of you are solopreneurs with incredible ideas and concepts. You have to systematize them and build processes around them so that they can be used by other people. That's how that works. I know a lot of you in here have some fantastic processes and ideas. And I know for a fact that they can be systematized and taught to other people. A lot of other people are going to want to use your processes. They're going to want your success. So think about it in that way. You've got to clone yourself. You've got to be able to systematize and get other people involved.
So would licensing be part of that, for example? Licensing?
There's a couple of models. You can license the model. You can franchise the model. Franchising is very difficult, but licensing is one. You can also build a team to provide services where it's under your own company, where you hire multiple people to do what you're doing, and then you just manage them. But that means you're going to stop doing what you're doing, right?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tawana Peoples. I have a small business. I do fingerprinting background checks and notary services. And I was wondering about when you said business evaluation. With my business, I'm a solopreneur, but I do have a collective partnership with a bigger company. So I guess my question is, as far as evaluating a business, you said to possibly do that from day one. With a niche business like fingerprint background check services, how do I do an evaluation?
Relevant to the valuation per se, right? It's really, the valuation process is industry agnostic. It's going to work in every single industry. In your case, what I was referring to with start with the end in mind when you're working. It sounds like you're subcontracting underneath a lab, right? So what that means is how you would think of it. Maybe in 5 years, you're going to say, instead of working with this one, maybe you can subcontract with 10. Right, and then train people under you and sort of scale that way, right? And then to the young lady that had the nursing business, another way of doing it as well is branding, becoming an influencer, developing a SaaS software and selling that to nursing schools, right? You become the brand and then sell that training software, that education software. That might be an avenue.
Does anybody else have a question? We have room for one more question.
Hello, everyone. I am Magdalena Marlin. I have a question in regards to the grants. You mentioned 50 million given in grants previously, and I was wondering in terms of the requirements for small businesses to apply for grants, how does that work out?
Sure. So what I was speaking to before was just specifically for semiconductors, right? There are hundreds of billions of dollars worth of grants out there that are unclaimed, and it's not necessarily how you need. Well, for one, there's an RFP that goes out, right? Every, the government or some organization is going to put that out. You're going to need a grant writer to write those grants for you. And then whatever your mission is as a business has to line up with what that grants initiative is. And then there's a certain amount of money allotted for that, and you'll be awarded some of those monies. But my first step for you, I would say, talk to a grant writer.
Well, thank you, everybody. That brings this segment to a close. Appreciate the opportunity to help you guys. Here's Andrew.
Thanks again, Gene.
Thank you.
Mark.
Thank you.
Damien, great job on the panel. Very
Thank you.
So that wraps up part 2 of the Power Breakfast and Conference. So we're halfway there, but hopefully you already found that you've learned some things that are valuable to you in your work, in your business, and that's what it's all about. Leaving out of here more focused, more knowledgeable, more prepared, and more excited about tackling what you have in front of you. So thanks again to the panelists. We're going to take a break, come back at 12:45, and we're going to have Jimmy Newsom talk about really maximizing the impact of your business by focusing on leveraging data. Data is so important, and digital data, digital information. We talked about marketing. This is going to be an education in marketing. So we're looking forward to having them do that. And thanks again for tuning in. And we're going to have lunch. So hopefully you do too. Thanks.
Great.